Welcome back to the Round 18 Supercoach weekly score review thingy-majig with me, JD. It has been a crazy weekend, to say the least, and a lot of people are hurting right now with the carnage that has gone on. So with the few trades we have left, if any at all, let's navigate it together and see what we can do to finish out the year. It's been really crazy. I was talking about, like, the rule of thumb was towards the back end of the year, if you've got a good, durable team, and then maybe one trade for each 3 weeks for an injury might be about right. And, we definitely hadn't needed that many throughout the year, but we had, Langford go down last week, as well as Whitfield, who had concussion. And then this week we had Dusty go down that'll be the rest of the year. Josh Kelly looks like he might have gone down for the year, and we had Green and Mills spontaneous outs as well. So, that's 5 potential players that some people could have had that have all gone out in the space of 2 weeks. It's just nuts. So my week itself, I was actually pretty fortunate. While I got hit with Langford last week, I only had Dusty this week of the absolute carnage. So I didn't fare too poorly in the end, 24.50, which ended seeing me go up another 84 ranks, so back inside the top 500, which is a good result. I was definitely hoping to end up in the top 300, and I think it's going to be pretty hard to do. I mean, I know there's a lot of teams ahead of me hurting, so I kind of have to hope that there's basically 200 teams that are in a much worse situation than I am to get there, which I'd say is pretty unlikely. And I reckon there's probably some behind me that have got trades up their sleeve that'll come home pretty strong. But let's jump into the team itself. Oh, thank you. Winner. 9 out of 10. It's actually not too bad. I won my cash league as well. I'm sure I would have. I guess we'll just quickly zip through this. So, Ridley started off pretty well. I think it was on 60 at half time, and that score just faded once Essendon got on top. Bit of a really average game. Who else worth commenting on? Short without Hooley. We kind of talked about how that could mean good things for him, and I believe he played okay. I'm hoping this is more his floor from here on out, but he's pretty widely owned. It doesn't really matter. And there's not really much else to talk about in defence. All the others are pretty widely owned. Whitfield here, missed the concussion, would have hurt a lot. Bianco's 64 as cover was decent. What was Highmore? Because that would have been a very popular option. Obviously, I would have liked to have him too. He had a 64 as well. All right, so much of a muchness. It's pretty funny. I think Madden was in the 30s, so those are probably the popular options. Maybe I'll just talk about Mills and Green now, because I know people are going to ask about trading them and what should I do. And look, my understanding of the situation is that they are a casual contact or a tier 2 contact. I'm not sure if that's exactly the same in Queensland, which is where they will be situated now, where they classify it the same as New South Wales and Victoria. But from my experience, because we had a scare with this at home in the last week, anytime you're a casual contact, it means you have been in the vicinity of a confirmed COVID case. So for their situation, it was they're in the vicinity of someone that had COVID at the game. Now, given that I'm guessing that it was an outdoor venue, the amount of cases that are being transmitted in open air like that are very, very low. You'd actually have to have direct contact with them coughing on you, but if you're just passing by someone, it's pretty rare. So I'd say it's pretty unlikely to actually have COVID. But the protocols for a casual contact is to, from my understanding anyway, probably shouldn't be giving out this advice, I'm knocked up, blah, 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 blah. But from my experience, it is when you're a casual contact in that type of situation, you have to stay at home and self-isolate until you get a negative test result, which could be as early as tomorrow or should be as early as tomorrow for those players. I'm assuming they all got tested today. And then assuming that you have no symptoms and you get a negative test result, you can resume normal life. And then they either ask you to get a test 5 days after the contact and have that as a negative 2, or they just say that if you develop any symptoms at all, you need to get tested again straight away. So, it's something like in New South Wales, someone said there was over 12 or 14,000 of these casual contacts, which is like the same grading or tiering roughly is what the GWS and Sydney players have. So it's pretty unlikely that they miss any time, I would say, beyond like today. It's just really unfortunate happening today. If it happened during the week, it probably wouldn't be an issue. And I'd say it's really, really unlikely that they have COVID, but you never know. So yeah, I'd say like those players are going to be a hold. At worst case, even if Queensland's more restrictive, they're going to miss 2 weeks. So I guess the hard thing is we don't know when the fixtures are going to be released for 2 weeks from now, because if that started on a Sunday, there's a chance they could play a Sunday game in 2 weeks' time, maybe. But look, they might probably still not a trade given everyone else's situation in the Carnage, but yeah, I would say it's unlikely they miss more than just the weekend we just had, as long as they return negative results. If they return a positive result, things are going to go upside down. I mean, the answer to all our trade problems could come with AFL having to heavily restructure games and the Supercoach team giving out trades. Oh, and actually, just on that, I know it's like a really big issue, and maybe you don't want to hear my opinion on this at all, but should it have gone to like best 18 or best 20, or should extra trades been given? And for me, like the correct answer was to do nothing. The example I've used on Twitter, where if you don't follow me, by the way, like chuck us a follow, appreciate it. Or like talking to other people is like if you have Gastro go through a team like the day before the game and there's all these laid outs, you don't turn up to best 18 and give out extra trades for that. This is very, very unfortunate and like outside the control of the players. And it's just unlucky for coaches. But the reality is the game hasn't been moved, and it's not a whole team that's missing. It's a couple of players. It's just unfortunate that 2 of them were Supercoach relevant, and it was the last game of the round where you don't have as much opportunity to trade around it, and it's at the end of the year when we're already like out of trades. So it's just like this perfect storm. But you don't want to set precedent that every time you have like a bunch of laid outs that for whatever reason they change it to best 18. I could have seen the argument for like, oh, it'd be good if it had been able to go to best 21, but we saw from the middle of the year when there was a big debate around like how they handled the the Richmond West Coast game that got moved back a week, like how you handle that. The way that the code is written for Supercoach at the moment, from my understanding, is they actually can't do anything other than best 18. So going to best 20, best 21 wasn't an option. It was like, do we give extra trades like 5 minutes, 10 minutes before the game, which they can't do. And like, even if they could, it's pretty unfair because those that also had the same players but had like better bench cover or they had trades up the sleeves, they're the ones that end up getting disadvantaged. So yeah, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, if you're one of those that are sitting on Green or Mills, something like 50% of the top 5,000 had one or both. So yeah, you're not alone. You're not alone. And then of course, not to like Dusty as well, which will be a compound situation. Sorry, let's tear through the rest of it, and we can quickly touch on some trade options for these guys, and then close it out from there. So midfield, Steele was huge. I doubted him. It was bad of me. I was worried that St Kilda would start to fold against some of the better teams again. But yeah, they stood up to Port really well, and Steele led from the front, which he's been doing the whole year. It's very impressive. We started talking on the cord today about like who are those that basically starting to talk about 2022 and who are those that are like locks or must have. And like George was very adamant that Steele, his boy, was a lock for next year, and I can see why. Like he's in that age range perfectly. He's consistent, gets his scoring from lots of avenues. Lots to like about Steele. Actually, speaking about the cord, shout out to Bales, who I think took the weekly. Oh my god, let's check it. This is going to be really embarrassing if it wasn't him. How do I do it? Just my points. Oh yeah, of course. Duh. Feels at the top. Nah, I don't think it was him, right? Or maybe it was. No, it is. I'm pretty sure it is. I'm pretty sure he is. Oh my god! Well, congrats. I hope that's him, because that means he just won $1,000 or $2,000, depending whether or not he's a subscriber to SC Gold. Good on him. All right, sorry, I keep getting derailed. So yeah, Steele was amazing. Walsh was huge. he's just been immense for Carlton the last month. I think they're 3-1 over that period, and like Walsh has just been balling out every week. This like post by Walsh we knew was going to be a thing. It was the same thing last year. He's just elite endurance. He's bulletproof when it comes to injuries, like as of right now, touch wood type stuff. And yeah, I could totally see this coming when you don't even predict 190s and stuff, but the good vein of form is great. So yeah, loving what I'm seeing out of Walsh. And look, they've got North this week, so some people might be thinking about captaining him. I'm still not sure I've got that much faith, but yeah, he's been awesome. McRae was really good. He was my vice captain low poll. I think he averages something like 140, 145 against Gold Coast the last 4 or 5 games, and didn't get to those heights. So like 124 is not terrible by any means, and actually was better than the captain backup options which people took, such as Grundy or Gawn. Like Grundy was originally who I was going to see, but as soon as I got the 124, he just banked that, which ended up being the right call. Won like league matches based up on someone stepping up. So very nice. Bont with a second disappointing game in a row. He set the all-time record for clangers. Just like, I think he had the most touches on the ground, but then most clangers as well. Like he was finding it, but just like really off night for ball use, like very uncharacteristic of Bont. So yeah, hopefully he bounces back from that. They play Adelaide this weekend. That is a matchup that I would love to exploit. The Crows have been giving up a lot of points to midfielders, and you could see someone like a McRae or Bont going pretty big, but for those that remember at the start of the year when we had Dunkley, McRae and Bont, there was a little bit of a concern about whether or not any of them were good vice-captain, captain choices just because of the point sharing going on. Dunkley didn't have a great week last week, but yeah, it does worry me a little bit about like whether or not we'll see some of that again, and if we can find captains in like better captain options elsewhere, then that might be worth considering. Merritt was good, was very decent. I think like Parrish kind of overshadowed him when it came to Supercoach again, and was a great vice captain or captain option, right, for anyone that picked him up. That was like one of the guys I was talking about that I was big on. Yeah, 138, he did well again. And actually, while we're here, I think finally took Miller scored because he had another big week, didn't he? Yeah, 120. Oh, he's been huge. 3-round average 138, 5-round average 130. What a guy. Sorry, I realised my picture's over the info box, so you just have to trust me on it. Oliver had a good bounce back game, actually, 139. He hadn't had the best form the last few weeks, which kind of mirrored Gawn and Melbourne more broadly. But yeah, that's a really good score. I mean, it's nothing to go wild about because a lot of people had him. I guess it's just whether or not you use him as vice captain option. They also have a nice matchup this week with Gold Coast. But with that said, Gold Coast have found a bit of form. They've been very competitive in the last month or so, maybe even a bit longer since about the last month or so. So like these are interesting, like Blues against North, like that's exploitable. Bulldogs against Crows, that's exploitable. Demons against Gold Coast, that's exploitable. So lots of interesting ones. Oh, and Neil, he's got a Hawthorn this week, that's also exploitable, but he hasn't been in the best form. I don't know if I'd be throwing VCs or Cs out. He was just okay, I thought. Yeah, just fine. Bramble, by like great bench cover on 91, almost outscored by Brayshaw. He was alright. Like no one in Freo shot particularly well, and them against Sydney this week is actually like a really important game for the top 8. Freo really needs a win, but I'm pretty worried about whether or not Brayshaw is going to score well. I hope he gets back to some of his 120s, 130s. He's a bit of a pod, so need those. The Ruck's disappointing this week unless you've had Darcy, who just keeps on keeping on. Although the one thing on Darcy is that he had a bit of a knee injury towards the end of the game. From the quotes I've seen so far, it sounds like he avoided like big problems, but I don't know if that means he's going to miss a week or two, or if it's just like fine. So that's one to watch for the how many people own him outside of Zeno. Like 710, that is insane. 3-round average 177, 5-round 152. That's I see it at 156. That's huge. Yeah, man, he's just crazy last 3 weeks. In the forward line, Danger was really good. He's been in the last 3 games he's had 2 up, 1 down. But yeah, he's been good, which is what we thought would would come from danger once he was back in the mix. The Cats play the Tigers this week, which should be a pretty good game. I mean, Tigers obviously haven't been in the best form, but they're scrapping for a spot in the 8. They'll be very much like back against the wall once again without Dusty. So yeah, that could be like quite an interesting game. I mean, Cats have been pretty good though, and they're starting to peak towards the right end of the year. So yeah, yep. He should score right though. I would imagine like that type of game is the type of game he stands up in. The Kane Bros, Zeeble and Hall playing chip to chip in the back line. I mean, nothing wrong with that. Hall set the record for most uncontested possessions without a contest. Most disposals that are there's no takes. There you go. You saw me really stuff up my words. Like that's probably the worst all year. So Hall set the record for most disposals without a contested possession. I think at 28, I want to say it was. Do they have the stats in here? No, probably not. They have no real stats in here, right? It's just fantasy stats. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So you have to, whatever the disposal number was, that was the record. Pretty amazing. He was good, and like he still like takes really good kicks into the corridor and like launch North's attack. But yeah, it's pretty funny. We'll get to Nick Hyde. He was my trading this week for Langford, and then Dale was decent. He's like just been motoring along like these perpetual hundreds, so 98, 89, 111, 96, like last 4 weeks outside of the 50 where he had to, is that where we went forward again, I think it was, like just averaging 100, which is serviceable, like it's good. I think anything between 95 and 100 average is feeling pretty good in the forward line at the moment. Dusty, the 65, for those that haven't heard the news, I don't know, you're living under a rock or something, but his kidney got impacted. I assume there's some type of bleeding or bruising in there for them to be taking the action that they have, so he won't be playing for the rest of the year. He is a must trade. So Green and Mills, I don't think it trades, much like Whitfield. I have a feeling from what I know about COVID and their situation, it's more likely than not they'll be back this week. Dusty is a trade out, and Josh Kelly, we haven't heard any extra news on his ankle yet, but it didn't look good. Like it's the syndesmosis type stuff, and they were pretty quick to sub him out. So I ended up not watching the last quarter of the game once the Swans were on top. I was watching Oscar Piastri in the F2 instead. So maybe they updated during that, but from everything I've read, we actually don't know whether he's going to be out for an extended period of time. I assume he is, and I will say, look, I had to say I told you so, but 8, 9, 10 weeks coming around by time, people are like, what do you think about Josh Kelly? What do you think about Josh Kelly? He's cheap, he's getting good scores, blah blah blah. And I said, look, he's going to continue getting good scores, but there's 2 big risks: injury and roll risk. The roll risk didn't eventuate, but the injury risk did. So hopefully you listened and went someone else, because even though he has scored great close points with us hurting for trades and completing teams, it's better that you weren't on him. And yeah, at 60G, like I really need some cover in the forward line. So talking about Hines, so my decision this week with Langford was like, he's going to be back in a few weeks. I know I'm missing Dusty already, and I have to trade him. I'm going to go down to zero trades this week. And my thought was, instead of trading Langford to Hine, do I try and get like a cheap cover from trading it like Edwards or something instead? And I didn't have the guts to pull the trigger. What I really wanted to do was trade Edwards to Nick Blakey. I talked about this a fair bit today, and he's probably out of the price range now. He went up, another 38k. But yeah, I had the money to go Edwards to Blakey, which sounds crazy, right? But I'll explain why in a second. So then Blakey would end up covering Langford for the next 3 weeks, and basically would want Blakey to kind of like draw even with Hind or get close to over that period. And then for the last 3 weeks of the year, I'd have Langford back, and then Blakey would be my cover at F7. And yeah, so the reason why I like Blakey is he's moved behind the ball like 2 weeks ago, and this is his 3rd week behind the ball in 2 games, like tougher games against West Coast and the Western Bulldogs. He put up a 78 and a 92, which is 2 best scores for the year, and then he backed that up again with another 79 today. So He's going to be around that like 80 to 85 average for the year, which isn't great. Like it's not a 9,500 that you want from a primo, so I'd lose 50 points over the next 3 weeks. But it does mean if there was any other forward injuries from here on out, I would have cover. I was just like, I don't know. I guess I was just worried that like Hind does have a ceiling. He could go big, and this might not be 50 points over the next 3 weeks that I lose. It could be like 150 or 200, in which case having him as cover, like just it isn't worth as much. So I chickened out, and as it turns out, yeah, like Blakey outscored Hind this week, and the cover would have been pretty handy. So that hurts. If you're looking for a really cheap option, by the way, Blakey is in the forward line. Like Blakey's a good one. Dan Rioli's the other one. I assume he scored okay. Yeah, 83. He's also similar boat as Blakey. Talented player that they can move behind the ball because can't find enough of it playing forward of it. So yeah, those are the two really, really cheap options if you're looking for a forward one, which I don't think many people would be. So then the big topic is, who do we trade Dusty to? Everyone's going to be in the same boat thinking about this. Now, if you have the money and you don't have Dane Zorko, that makes a lot of sense. Or if you have the money, you could, of course, go... Yeah, Josh Dunkley. I mean, come on, who wouldn't want Josh Dunkley? And I'd pick Dunkley over Zorko, right? So they're your one and your two. If you don't have Dangerfield for whatever reason you can afford him, there's another good option. I'd probably even pick Danger over the other two. But the reality is most of us either already have them or can't afford them. So then the best, what's left? You've got Hawkins who, put out another 128. They have a decent run home. They've got North still to come, but a couple of tough games in like Melbourne, and then like they have like a lot of mid-table teams that could upset, like Richmond, GWS, and Kilda. So like this, I mean, he should beat up on Richmond though. Should beat up on North. Sam Taylor for GWS is really good if he takes him, like if he gets him. Saints' defense hasn't been great. Melbourne's defense is obviously really hard. I don't know, like I'm not really a big fan of picking key forwards, but the thing that Tom Hawkins, of course, does have going for him, playing in a good team, he has shown top level scoring before, and he is very durable, and that's definitely one of the things I'm prioritising at the moment. So Hawkins is a decent option. Dale and Hind, like the reason why I went Hind, by the way, over Marshall last week, I'll talk about Marshall now as well, is that, like, I mean, if you've been watching, you know I'm not the biggest fan of Hind from a Supercoach perspective. I think he's a great player, but that type of role, like that rebounding halfback that isn't used as the main, like, exit point, doesn't take kickouts, they're really hard to get over a 95 average for the year. It's just really, really hard to do that. You're not getting enough of the free cheap stuff. You're not getting the chip marks, whatever. We saw Hind's floor this week. So I think he's good for like a 90 to 95, but I don't think he could go on the 105 over 6 weeks, which you might be looking for with a bit of upside. Someone like a Hawkins or a Dixon or a Tom McDonald, any of these key forwards, they can go on a really big run and get you a 5-6 round average of 105, 110. But they have the floor as well, where they could just average like 80 or 75 over those 5-6 weeks. I'd rather have the players that are going to play every game because we're going down to 0 trades, and they are reasonably consistent. It's just I'm going to feel better about it. It's not where I'm trying to win. I think the rest of my team is good enough that as long as I just have players on the park with consistent scoring, it'll be fine. So that's why I ended up picking Hind over Marshall. Obviously, I think Marshall's a better Supercoach scorer, and the ruck forward swapping is like useful. It might be like handy at one point, you don't know. But Marshall's already had like 2 sets of setbacks with that toe. I wouldn't trust it. Saints' schedule's like pretty hard anyway, but I mean, he showed that on the weekend. Like, I know George went Marshall over Hind. I went Hind over Marshall, and he definitely takes the win this week because he had a 127. It's a 50-point win, but you're hoping that he stays fit for the rest of the year, which is like, that's a bit of a gamble for me. I don't really want to take that. So the option that I like replacing Dusty for is not side bottom, not Langford. Bailey is a no, like that role is too inconsistent. Isaac Smith is a no, his role is probably a little bit too inconsistent, although I think some of the injuries have helped him. He actually might be like one of the better options. All the key forwards are out. Everyone else I've kind of got or is injured. So Shai Bolton is the one that I am looking at. He's a cheaper one, so if you have Dusty, you can definitely get him. He gives me 105k with no trades left, so unless we get some pre-COVID ones, that'll just be money in the bank. But the reason why I like Bolton is that I think with Dusty out for the rest of the year, Bolton is the one they're going to push up into his role in the midfield, which is going to suit his scoring a lot more than getting stuck forward. I believe that's what they'll do. And with Tigers finding a bit of form on the run home, he is most likely going to be an integral piece in them winning. Oh, who's the other option that I should talk about? Sorry, is De Goey. Because the people have been asking about like, De Goey. And look, he's someone I could get instead of Bolton. Like, he's definitely not out of price range. Like 114, man. 114, 124, 114, 115. He's lost 4 scores with a couple weeks missed in the middle. So the reason why I wasn't on De Goey is for, like, there's 3 main reasons that I'll talk about. So the first one is that he hasn't had the best health history himself. He's missed games due to like injury and that type of stuff. And once again, I want the safe players. He's definitely got some really good ceiling. But injury history scares me a little bit. Secondly, I actually think that the job security for him is pretty good. I think, Collingwood are playing there at the start of the year before kind of various bits and bobs happened. So they did have intention of playing him in that midfield, a bit like a Jake Stringer or a Dusty, and then being able to push forward and be dangerous up front as well. This was always their intentions. I actually think they're going to keep playing him in this type of role anyway. The development's good anyway, in like a lost year for Collingwood. But the risk to his role is that Jamie Elliott goes down, because when Jamie Elliott goes down, they really have to push to go forward. So I guess like the second point here is it's not just about his health. It's also about Elliott's, and Elliott is very, very injury prone. So these two, like the first injury prone to him obviously just misses games. That's terrible. The second injury prone is Elliott, and obviously De Goey plays, but he just scores much less. He loses his role. He ends up playing more time forward. Goes back to averaging 60, whatever it is. And then the third reason is from the reading I've been doing about his extracurricular activities. I believe he's got another court date coming up in August 9th, so a couple of weeks away. Not really sure, like, what are the potential outcomes, like, of that. He might not be able to play AFL after that week, or at least it may be enough of a distraction that it puts him off. You can really see players go two way where, like, that type of external stress, they focus their energy and effort into football and just play better, but you also see people crumble under that pressure as well. For whatever reason, I actually believe that De Goey is probably the type that helps him, but it's just another like extra little risk that with the health risk, and there's another chance, like another avenue you might be missing games. I just want to avoid all of that. So for these reasons, like Marshall and De Goey, much better upside than Bolton, I find, but they have worse injury history, bigger risks attached to them. So I want to go for the person that I believe is actually going to play the rest of the year, or most likely play the rest of the year, even if that means that they're at a slightly lower average. So it'll be Dusty to Bolton. Will be the last trade of the year. We are done trading. We are just a ship in the night sailing home, and I assume that many of you will be as well. But yeah, please let me know how you're going. Are you still making progress up the ladder, even if you've hit 0 trades? Are you gonna, do you have a finished team? Do you have cover? And if you are, weighing up with any of the options, especially for like Josh Kelly, that I haven't talked about as much, please hit me that below. But yeah, that gives you hopefully a pretty good idea of like how I'm thinking about the forward targets I want from here on out, and hopefully that helps you make some decisions too. We're back to like the big, 29, 30-minute videos. Sorry, we're getting close. We're getting under 20 for a little while, but and if any of those are doing a tough lockdown, wherever you may be, Victoria, New South Wales, wishing you all the best. Stay safe, look after each other, and I'll see you in the next one.